जाना नहीं तू कहीं हार के कांटों पे चल के मिलेंगे साए बहार के।
मौत से कौन डरता है शंकर कथूरिया, मौत तो एक दिन सबको आती है।
लोगों को उनका सब कुछ दे के तू तो चला था सपने ही लेके, कोई नहीं तो तेरे अपने हैं सपने ये प्यार के।
Vinod Khanna is no more. Good evening and welcome to NewsX. It's a night of nostalgia. It's an evening of nostalgia, rather. I'm your host, Sanjeev Mukherjee, for this show tonight. One of the most loved actors of silver screen, Vinod Khanna, passed away earlier today after a prolonged and perhaps difficult battle against bladder cancer. With his drop-dead good looks, Vinod Khanna had ruled the silver screen, making a niche for himself in a galaxy of superstars in the 70s. He's best remembered for his scintillating performances in movies like Kache Dhage, Qurbani, Achanak, etc., etc. From his rise to stardom, to him renouncing that very stardom at the height of his career to pursue spiritualism in 1982, when in fact the media called him the sexy sannyasi of Indian movie. To returning back to the silver screen 5 years later, the life of Vinod Khanna has been an enigma. He also forayed into politics and won from the Gurdaspur constituency for a total of 4 times for the Bharatiya Janata Party. Adored by his fans, praised by his critics and contemporaries as an actor, an MP and a human being, Vinod Amar hai. That's what we are going to discuss tonight as we remember this iconic superstar of our times, Vinod Khanna. I'll be joined on the show in just a bit by Madhur Bhandarkar, a filmmaker from Mumbai, and also Muzaffar Ali, filmmaker, who's joining us from New Delhi on the satellite link. If I could come to you first, Madhur Bhandarkar. Of course, it's difficult to frame a first question, but what do you think of when you think of Vinod Khanna at this point of time after his passing? He was, all in all, the complete package of Bollywood, far ahead of his years. Wouldn't you agree to that?
Absolutely. When this news came in the morning, it was very difficult to believe it. Because in between there was a news he's getting back from the hospital, getting well. So it's a very sad news, not for the film industry but the entire country, I would say. His fans and his constituency, where he has been elected 3 times from there. It's a very sad news because Vinod Khanna ji, basically a person who has style, talent, brilliant actor, style icon, I would say. And people, he started his career as a villain with Man Ka Meet, and then his journey started with Aan Mino Sajna, Sacha Jhoota, a lot of movies, And Mera Gaon Mera Desh happened. And Mera Gaon Mera Desh was a very iconic film. It has the film which really changed the career of Vinod Khanna. And from there his journey just began, and he did so many movies then after with Amit ji. He did so many films like Khun Pasina, Amar Anthony, Parvarish, Zamir, so many movies. And he was unstoppable. I mean to say, he was a person in his career, at the peak of his career, he left the film industry and went back to, he went to Rajneesh.
Right.
And when he came back, the Indian audience gave him a huge welcome with films like Satya Mein Jayate and Insaf.
Right. Madhur, tell us something about the fact that Vinod Khanna in his heydays, he was always termed as the director's actor. What was perhaps his standout quality that made him a hot favorite with directors across genres? He could literally play any role possible.
See, when as a Vinod Khanna fan, I'm a great admirer of Vinod Khanna from childhood, basically. And I remember in my old house, we had there's a cupboard where all Vinod Khanna posters were there of Stardust, Filmfare and Star and Style, I remember very precisely. And Vinod Khanna definitely was noticed from the first film, Man Ka Meet, and then later so many movies he did, and small role he did, but still he was recognized in films like Sacha Jhoota. And then came Imtihan, a film which Ruk Jana Nahi Tu Kahi Haar Ke, a very iconic song of Kishore Da.
Yeah.
And that really changed. And Vinod Khanna was a personality, a towering figure, a panther walk, they used to always say. Nobody walks like Vinod Khanna. And he has a style, the way he used to do his eyes up and say lines in Mera Gaon Mera Desh, where he played a dacoit, Jabbar Singh. And then after he went to do various amount of roles, Lahu Ke Do Rang, and there was film like Shak, Achanak, which was very not mainstream cinema, but still he made his that performance so remarkable. Like film like I remember like Achanak was the one. Gurdaspur film was a very ahead of time film, very cult film. I'm going to say Shak, another film which was directed by Aruna Vikas, was a brilliant movie, Shabanaji. And he really changed the whole narrative of being a mainstream actor. At the same time, he would do offbeat roles also.
Right. I'll come back to Madhur in just a bit, but right now I'm joined by two very eminent personalities here on NewsX, both of whom have personally known Vinod Khanna from close quarters. Bharti Pradhan, film critic and author, joining us on this show tonight. So is Muzaffar Ali. Mr. Ali, if I could come to you first, of course, it's perhaps a very sad day for the entire Bollywood fraternity and anybody who loves Hindi movies and has watched Vinod Khanna in action on the silver screen. First words from you. How would you like to remember Vinod Khanna?
Well, I remember him first as a friend, as a fellow Libran. We had a lot in common, we had a lot of bonding. Whenever we met, it was like that we had never parted. So Vinod was always a kind of a inspiration for me, and I was not exactly in the kind of a Bollywood mode. I was more in Delhi pursuing my creative career, and when I met Vinod in 1989, he had just come back and I was making this film Habba Khatun, Zuni, and I was looking for this great Sultan of Kashmir, and it was going to be a kind of a seminal film in English and in Hindi. So I needed an actor who was proficient in both the languages. And when I discussed the role with Vinod, he really fell for it. He was so enamored by the role. And when he spoke his lines, I felt that he spoke them much better in English, and his memory was so good. He would remember each word and then improvise on each feeling, which was remarkable. So Vinod was like a godsend for me for that film, and we worked very beautifully together. It was a very challenging assignment. It was set over 4 seasons in Kashmir.
Right.
On one hand, he was just getting into a very, very busy mode, and at the same time, the valley was also in a kind of a turmoil. So we had a lot of trouble trying to see his scenes through all the 4 seasons. So for me, it was a very, very big shock to know that he's no more.
Bharti Pradhan, take us back in time because, I was born much after Vinod Khanna reached his peak in his movie career, and you've watched him from close quarters. Take us back in time and tell us about that young, dashing, very good-looking actor who could literally transcend every sort of role, starting from being a villain to being a superstar to going head-to-head, literally, with none other than Amitabh Bachchan. Talk us through those days about Vinod Khanna.
The first thing I want to say is, although we knew this was coming, when we got the news that he was no more, I was just so filled with sadness. And I think that's the feeling anybody who knew him would go through. The entire day I've been feeling very, very personally, I've been feeling the personal loss. I would like to remember him as somebody who just had so much guts in everything he did, whether it was in the way he lived his life, whether it was in the way he handled his career. He just had so much guts. He was completely unafraid of anything and anyone. He was just not a person who went by conventional rules. I remember there was a time when Hema Malini had been signed to do this film called Meera, and she told me personally, she says there's a very, the whole film revolved around her naturally. She had the title role. She said, but the guy I'm married to is equally important. He has a very short but very, very important role. And none of the leading actors were ready to do that role. Now, ultimately, the only one who did it was Vinod Khanna. And she was very grateful to him for it. So was Gulzar, who made the film. So, he was that kind of person. He didn't go by rules of, the length is just this much, so why should I do it? Why, he just did things because he thought that was the right thing to do or because he felt like doing it. And he was somebody who, forget about being unapologetic, he was just somebody who wouldn't even bother to explain himself to anybody because he had that much conviction in whatever he did. Like whether it was in his personal life or whether it was in his career.
Basically,
and I saw that right through his life because we interacted quite a bit personally. And
yes, go ahead.
Saying something? You were saying something?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so you see whether, even in his life, in his personal life also, I don't know any actor who would just give up his career right at the peak and push off because then he was on a spiritual, he'd found a spiritual guide and nobody else does that. And he just went off for 4 years. When he came back with equal courage. He came back and I remember there was this big function going on in Brabourne Stadium. And it was called Hope 86.
Yeah.
He came there and he just apologized to everybody and said, I'm back and I'm here for good. I'm not going away. And that was it. And
Right. I guess there is a slight problem with the connection there with Bharti Pradhan. We'll try and
do that and get away with it simply because everybody, they were just waiting to have him back.
Right. Muzaffar Ali, we are all enamored, aren't we, by special characters? We are all enamored by, perhaps in some we see the darker side, in some we see something enigmatic. Do you think there was a sort of a shade of enigma even in somebody like Vinod Khanna? At the peak of his career, he was literally, figures or I don't know, analysts would say very close number 2 to Amitabh Bachchan, but he was as good as anybody else. He literally threw it away and vanished for 5-6 years, going to Osho Rajneesh, where he got to be called as the sexy sannyasi by the Indian media. Why would somebody literally throw it away right at his peak?
Well, as you've heard, he was a person who followed his heart. He was a man with guts. And the biggest thing about Vinod is that he was not in any mold, And when I cast him for my film Habba Khatun, I had a lot of fun designing him. I had a stylist from New York, Mary McFadden, and we worked on his looks and on his clothes, on his demeanor. I mean, he had a great body language, so he could ride a horse as gracefully as he would walk. So I mean, he was the most pliable character. He was not like casting a superstar. I can show you a picture which I've been
Sure, please go ahead.
It's a very nice photograph of Vinod on this beautiful stallion which I got for him. And he was a stallion which had never been ridden, and it was only Vinod who could calm down that stallion and ride that stallion. So he had a lot of special energy, a special focus on how to deal with the camera, how to deal with his inner way of expressing himself and the character and getting into the character. And I think very few people will be like that.
Right, sir. But in fact, I'm also told by people who knew him closely that other than the fact that he was perhaps one of the best actors who could literally take on any role and look good in any way and any particular role he would be cast, he was also a great human being. And apart from that, he was a pretty decent cricketer. We'll come back to that in just a bit. Let me get Madhur Bhandarkar back on this particular question which I have. A number of our viewers have actually written to us about the so-called perceived rivalry, Madhur, between Vinod Khanna and Amitabh Bachchan. Was it actually a rivalry? Was it something set up by the media? Or perhaps it was true that in his very own way, Vinod Khanna was the only person who could actually upstage or perhaps overshadow Amitabh Bachchan in his heydays?
No, no, I wouldn't say rivalry. I mean to say, not rivalry. I think they were doing equally well. I mean to say, both of them. Amit ji has his own style and own persona. Vinod ji had his own style and own persona. It was obviously, I'm sure, media created about it, rivalry between two stars, and this has been happening from so many years. We see about it. I feel that the whole thing about they made a formidable combination together. I mean, the film like Zamir, Khun Pasina, Muqaddar Ka Sikandar, Amar Akbar Anthony, Parvarish, they became people wanted to see that thing together, you know. And later we seen Jackie Shroff and Anil Kapoor together, and so many years after that we seen in Parinda and lot of other movies which came, Ram Lakhan and all. But that particular time, 70s, Amit ji and Vinod Khanna, like people wanted to have that thing. Oh my God, this combination coming together was fab. They were too good in all the movies when you name it, and they were perfectly combination. People wanted to see. The box office was huge of the two stars, I mean to say. So I feel they had both had his own space, and they had his own style and positioning in that era, and they did brilliantly well.
Right. Let me get Bharti Pradhan's response on this one. Bharti, you've obviously seen them act together, and everybody in India has actually enjoyed the movie, starting with Parvarish, in which we saw Amitabh Bachchan and Vinod Khanna sharing screen space, and for people like us and in the media who love to headline it like Amitabh versus Vinod Khanna, we've all loved it. But what was the standout feature, and why was it so special and different from any other multi-starrer in which even Amitabh Bachchan acted? It was never as good as the one in which he used to be with Vinod Khanna. It was like absolute magic that you had these two icons, Amitabh and Vinod Khanna, together on screen.
One of the reasons was that Amitabh Bachchan was a star by himself, a superstar, and nobody could kind of touch him. Yet Vinod Khanna had that kind of image where, if anybody remembers Amar Akbar Anthony, he plays the policeman and he takes on Anthony in one fight scene, and at the end of it, Amitabh loses to him because it's Amar who brings Anthony on his shoulder. He comes out because he's won the battle. He's won the fisticuffs, and he brings him on his shoulder outside. So, you know, he had the kind of image where he could beat up even the superstar and carry him out. He had that kind of image. It doesn't mean he was better than Amitabh or that he could overshadow him. It's just that he had the image that he could stand up to Amitabh Bachchan.
Right.
It doesn't make him a better actor or a bigger star. I mean, please, you know, that's not what I'm trying to say.
Right.
What I'm trying to say is he had the image where he, as the policeman, could bash this Gunda and take him. Yes. He had that image. And another thing is, when they did Muqaddar Ka Sikandar, there was a little bit of a tussle. It wasn't media made because I was around at that time. Muqaddar Ka Sikandar, there was a problem because both of them wanted to die. And so there was a little bit, you know, when they had the climax, they had a little bit of tension. It wasn't between the actors. I think they had it with the directors saying, look, I want to die, I want to die. That same kind of thing had happened between Amitabh Bachchan and Rajesh Khanna when they made Namak Haram too.
Right, and I'm sure
both wanted to die.
And I'm sure Muzaffar Ali would be perhaps regretting this this particular dilemma he never got to face, in which he had Amitabh Bachchan and Vinod Khanna both in acting in his movie and both wanting to enact the same particular situation out there. But talking about comebacks, Muzaffar Ali, you just told about this movie in which you were trying to make with Vinod Khanna after he came back. It was something completely different from what the Indian audience had seen. But look, talking about comeback, I'm not trying to compare Amitabh Bachchan and Vinod Khanna, but if you look comparatively at the comebacks, Amitabh Bachchan, when he made his comeback, he wasn't really that successful initially, but Vinod Khanna, the moment he came back with movies like Satyamev Jayate or Insaf, he came back with a bang. It was as if he had never left Bollywood.
Well, I never saw him from the comeback star potential point of view. You know, I saw him more as an actor, and an actor who could be a superstar or was a superstar, and could also be self-effacing. You know, I wanted a person with actually no image and no baggage of being a superstar, which I thought at that point of time Vinod had, and at the same time the chemistry with of romance. I mean, he was a romantic, and the chemistry with Dimple was amazing. I think that kind of chemistry. I'm sorry, the film is not made, so I can't explain that chemistry. But there's a picture which I can show you. I've been going through a depressing morning, looking at all these pictures which of Vinod and Dimple. It's really, I think that kind of chemistry was.
Sir, could you show it to the cameras for the benefit of our viewers? I'll ask our camera person to cut it full frame. Could you show it for the benefit of our viewers yet again? Okay, that's certainly an iconic picture. Not many people have seen in Muzaffar Ali. It's the prized possession of Muzaffar Ali. I'm sure you regret not having been able to release this movie, sir.
Well, it's a very sad, unfulfilled dream for me, you know. And now with Vinod gone, the chance of even, you know, treating it in flashback is also over, you know. So, but I think the moments I've captured, I'll treasure all my life.
Right. And Bharti Pradhan, what was perhaps what added to the charisma of Vinod Khanna in those days was that, yeah, of course, movie stars, they had their fair share of troubles. But other than the fact that he went away for 5-6 years, literally in self-imposed exile to Osho Rajneesh's ashram, Vinod Khanna, was he the sort of movie actor who would always be linked to controversial headlines in the Bombay newspapers, or was he just the clean guy who had a great life and was completely immersed in his own art? That was in doing good films.
No. He was not someone completely immersed in his art. He was somebody who had a life beyond his art. He had a lot going for him in life. He was very interested, like you mentioned, he was interested in cricket. He was interested in writing his own autobiography. He was interested in spiritualism. He had a lot going for him, and it wasn't just movies all the time for him. So I don't think he was just obsessed with his career. What did stand out as someone who interacted with him for a long time, what did stand out was that he had this I couldn't care less attitude about anybody and everything, in the sense that he was not ballsy and he wasn't mean to anybody, but he couldn't care less what you thought of him, because he had a lot of courage to, you know, he had that courage of conviction to, you know, that he knew what he was doing, and he was comfortable with what he was all about. So he was never looking for he was never looking to explain himself, or he was never trying to and he never quoted controversy at all. I have never known him to do that. He was never someone looking for headlines, but headlines sought him, yes. That's different. Yeah.
Headlines.
I've never known him to go out of his way to make headlines or to feed the press with things. No, he never did anything like that. Yeah.
Muzaffar Ali, I know hindsight is perhaps something we always try and make use of and, you know, ask hypothetical questions. But if there is one opportunity you would have got to do another movie with Vinod Khanna, or a particular character in which you had always seen him, what would have been that role?
I think he's a very difficult person to cast him, and either you use him in a kind of a superstar kind of a situation, but if you were to really cast him beautifully, I mean, I would probably cast him in a film that I was planning to make, and I'm still planning to make, on Rumi. You know, he was, because I think he was very spiritual, and he could connect with his soul through the camera and through the words that you give him to speak, you know, which was amazing, you know, which very few actors do, because he became almost real before the camera. You felt that he believed in what he was saying. I mean, there was not a single moment of something ringing false in his tone or in his eyes. His eyes were pure. He meant what he said, and this is something which is very rare. If you want to create a role which has to connect with people in a very deep way, you know.
Right, we're running out of time, but before we say goodbye, Bharti Pradhan, final words as you remember Vinod Khanna, the way you've known him and seen him, not only as an actor but also as a human being.
Vinod Khanna was also someone who loved music. So I think if Muzaffar Ali made a film or Madhur made a film with him on music, that would have been wonderful. Because he was very, very fond of classical music. I'd like to remember him as somebody very spiritual and he was a nice guy to know.
He was a nice guy.
And I'm glad I knew him.
Definitely, definitely. And it's perhaps a regret of many, many younger journalists all across the country that we perhaps never got the chance to interact with somebody of the stature of Vinod Khanna and get to know him or even try to know him personally. It's a sad day for Bollywood. But on that note, Muzaffar Ali, Bharti Pradhan, and of course Madhur Bhandarkar, thank you very, very much for taking a little bit of time out of your busy schedules and sharing with us your thoughts and what you felt, and remember Vinod Khanna in the way he was. For a lot of us who perhaps sometimes go and look beyond the screaming headlines, he was not just an actor who became a monk and sold his Mercedes. Well, he was perhaps much more. He was a dashing young man who could literally change the game, as a certain Amitabh Bachchan would perhaps know himself and perhaps know the best. We leave you finally with one final look at Vinod Khanna, the man, his music, his many moods. Enjoy the memory. Goodbye. Good night.
चाहिए थोड़ा प्यार चाहिए थोड़ा प्यार चाहिए जाने मन